So I am excited to have you all here today. Thank you so much for joining in. And for anyone who's watching the recording, thanks for watching the recording. Our topic today, I've doubled up here, nutritious holiday foods, is what we're going to talk about. So kind of seasonal produce, but also how we can incorporate those into our holiday meals. So generally, we're going to talk about fall produce. What are the health promoting properties of fall produce? How incorporating those into your holiday meals or just your fall meals can be a really nutritious choice. And I'm hoping that this will help empower you to change the conversation around food. Maybe if maybe your family is not doesn't have such a positive you know conversation around food. There seems to be at holidays lots of jokes about how unhealthy the food is. But I would say that it would be much more positive experience if we just talked a lot about all the nutrients that we're getting from nutritious holiday foods. So hopefully I can arm you with some information that you can share at your holiday dinner table. And I've got recipes to share at the end as well. And I will send these slides out to you so that you can have the recipes. Probably most of the recipes are already on my website, but they might be buried because they could be years old. So the reason that I try to focus on in-season foods, so kind of each of the 4 seasons, we'll highlight some of the in-season foods because when you eat in-season fruits and vegetables, it optimizes their taste and nutritional content. That's as simple as, you're probably eating food that's actually picked when it's ripe. It's grown maybe closer to where you live, and therefore it hasn't lost as much of its nutritional value in the traveling process, or it's picked at its peak ripeness, which really helps with the flavor. So definitely being able to find like if you have a farmer's market, or even if you're in the grocery store or somewhere where you know that they're sourcing their produce locally, that tends to help, it helps your local economy, but really the foods tend to taste better when they're basically fresher. Now, frozen foods are often, and canned as well, they're often picked at their peak ripeness and then frozen or canned, close to where they're picked, and then they're transported. So the frozen and the canned fruits and vegetables can, be very nutritious, but that helps preserve its nutrient value. So by eating a variety of fresh, canned, and frozen, you will get lots of different nutrients. So here are a few key things. Our bodies like variety, so that's a good reason to eat seasonally. Maybe some of those foods that are only available certain times of year does give your body different variety. And it gives your taste buds different variety, and it helps associate foods with different seasons, which makes you have a positive relationship with that food. The reason our bodies like variety is that different plants have different nutrients, and that way we're providing our bodies with lots of different nutrients. So the start of a new season is a great time to try out seasonal produce, cozy recipes. It's fall. I mean, I don't know. Maybe not everybody on today lives in the same place I do, but today is a cold, drizzly, like you want cozy recipes kind of day. So there's lots of ways to try seasonal recipes and foods you haven't tried before that will help give your body that variety. So phytochemicals or phytonutrients, for those of you who come to my other programs, just means plant nutrients. And by eating in-season foods, you get a different variety of plant nutrients. They're all good for you, and the more we can get, the better. Evidence continues to show that vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals found in plant foods interact to provide extra cancer protection. So that's kind of the bottom line when I'm talking about healthy eating, is that we need you to get lots of plants. Like if I had to sum it up into one sentence, that's what it would be. Eat lots of plants or eat mostly plants. And in this picture is roasted vegetables, root vegetables, or fall or winter vegetables, and they are so delicious when they're roasted. I see roasted beets in there, which is really fun. I did roasted beets with a group. It's been a couple years, but it was a bunch of people who'd never had beets before, and I didn't grow up eating beets. But I started to get a farm box for a while, and I would just get whatever the farmer grew. And so I had to eat beets. And that's how I discovered roasted beets. So this particular cooking group that I worked with, they'd only ever had like jarred or canned beets. And so when we made roasted beets and carrots and potatoes, it was a whole new world. So the recipes that I'll share usually are pretty simple. And I think it's just fun to try different things. So your body prefers nutrients in food, not pills. So ideally, we are getting our nutrition, those vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients. They're coming from actual foods that we're chewing up and swallowing. Yes, you can get some nutrients from pills or powders, but it does not give you the full gamut of what a food actually gives you. So preferably, we're getting nutrition mainly from food. If you can't meet your needs, then that's when we would use a supplement. Or if you're deficient in some kind of nutrient, that's when we would use a pill. But the same thing with juice, the benefits that you get from orange juice versus oranges, it's not going to be the same. We'd much rather you ate an orange. And taking a vitamin C pill is like maybe the most processed version of an orange. You wouldn't get all the other things that an orange provides you. So we much prefer that you get your food sources of nutrients rather than pills. So nutrients all work together much more efficiently than just on their own. And that's why we want you, or, we don't just come up with this stuff just because we say so. There's plenty of evidence suggesting that when people get nutrients in foods, it's the combination of all those different nutrients working together that help your body to function at its best and therefore have the best health that you can. Whereas when you take nutrition supplements or herbals, they're usually picking out one or two things to really concentrate in that pill, and you're missing out on all the other things that foods provide. But also, they've done lots and lots of studies on people who consume pills because, quite honestly, it's easier to study people who take nutrients in pills than it is to try to get someone to eat a healthy diet. And data is pretty consistent that you do not get the health benefits when taking multivitamins versus just eating a nutritious diet. So I always say you can pair those together. Like a multivitamin is very reasonable. You could take one every other day and eat a nutritious diet, and then there you go. So fall vegetables are bold and stand up to intense flavors. So if you like to experiment with spices and herbs, this is a great season to do that. Those roasted vegetables, you can, kind of experiment with different combinations of herbs and spices. And herbs and spices are also plants. So by including those in your meals, you're adding additional phytonutrients to your day, which is what I call sort of bonus points to getting more plant nutrition. And fall vegetables also are really hardy. They have a lot of texture and fiber. And so they also last a long time. So those root vegetables can last in your fridge for a long time. And I know this because I got that farm box. For a long time, I had this farmer bringing me whatever was in season. And he would bring me root vegetables of all kinds, all kinds of turnips and radishes and things like that. And I didn't always know what to do with them. I didn't have time to scrub them, cut them. And so they'd just sit in my fridge for a long time. And eventually I'd get around to cooking them and they were still good. So that is a bonus to fall vegetables is that they can, back in the day we had cellars, but now it's just our fridge. And it can last a long time. But if you like your vegetables more tender, then if it's a recipe that's cooking some of those root vegetables, you might plan to cook them a little bit longer. I tend to like things a little more tender, less crunchy. So like in this picture, we have sort of a combo. I actually tend to start if I'm roasting or cooking, I would cook the root vegetables first a little bit longer and then add some of the more tender vegetables to it so that they have kind of the texture that I like. Here are some of our fall or winter vegetables: Brussels sprouts, sweet potatoes, squash, beets. And you can roast them and enjoy them hot, as a side dish. Then you can take the leftovers and have it on salad greens or on a kale salad. You can swap pasta for spaghetti squash. So the squashes that are in season, the winter squashes are spaghetti squash, butternut squash, acorn squash. And spaghetti squash is really fun because it doesn't take too much effort to roast it. You just have to, or to cook it. You cut it in half, scoop out the seeds, and then basically you take those two halves and cook it in the oven until it's done. When it's done, it's not soft or squishy like sweet potatoes or butternut squash. But if you use a fork and you just scrape the spaghetti squash, it comes off in little strings like noodles. And I think it's really good. You can put spaghetti sauce or some Parmesan cheese, basil, and it can taste really good. So they're always fun, I think. Parsnips, so when I was talking about radishes and turnips, I would also be given parsnips and rutabagas in my farm box. And I just was like, what do I do with this? Well, when I found out you can basically replace potatoes with parsnips or rutabagas in soups and stews or on shepherd's pie, which is, I didn't grow up knowing what shepherd's pie was, but it's basically like you could put mashed potatoes on the top of a stew, and that would be your shepherd's pie. And you can use rutabagas or parsnips for that as well. So I think you can also do kind of like mashed potatoes with parsnips or rutabagas. They're a little bit more, they have a little more texture than potatoes, but it's just fun to get a different vegetable in there. So those are great seasonal foods produce that can add to your holiday plate to make it a little special. Baked apples or pears for dessert is something kind of simple, and I love doing that. You can even, if it's a small, like it's just you or just two of you, and you want a baked apple, but you don't feel like heating up the whole oven, you can do those in a microwave, which makes it easy. Even just cutting it in half and sprinkling some cinnamon, and putting that in the microwave. You can add spinach or kale salad and add dried cranberries, pomegranates, walnuts, and even add whatever fruits you have around. So apples are certainly fall seasonal vegetable or fruits, and they last a long time in the fridge. So I found some this week. I went to Trader Joe's and they had some special apples, which anytime Trader Joe's has something like special or unique, I buy them because you never know when it's going to be there next. And they were yellow on the outside and almost a little bit pink on the inside, which was really fun. So I think just finding those different seasonal fruits is a fun way to enjoy eating your produce. So just a reminder that eating any vegetable is better than eating no vegetables. So whatever is available to you or whichever sounds good to you, fresh, frozen, canned. But these are the ones that we tend to focus on in the fall. So fruits, we have cranberries, pears, apples, pomegranates. I bought one of the cups. I got lazy and bought pomegranate seeds without having to, take the outside off the pomegranate. I think I got that while I was at Trader Joe's, and it was just delicious to eat on its own. It's great to add to salads. They're not the cheapest, I will say that. If you do buy a whole pomegranate, when you break it apart, it can often squeeze the juice on you, which can stain. So someone gave me a tip a long time ago, and this is just how I know to do it, is that you fill a bowl, like a mixing bowl with water, and you essentially cut your pomegranate in half, but then dunk it underwater as you're taking all the peel and the little pithy insides out. And the seeds tend to kind of sink to the bottom, and then I don't know, the white outside of the pomegranate tends to float to the top. And that way you don't get juice sprayed everywhere because it does stain. Cranberries are almost only available this time of year. You can freeze cranberries. So if you just love cranberries so much you want to have them year round, you can buy them when they're on sale and then keep them in your freezer. I've thrown frozen, like fresh cranberries that I've had in my freezer. I've thrown them in muffins before, and I think it tastes really good. I like a tart taste. But you can get dried cranberries year round, but it's fresh cranberries. That's a little bit harder to come by. Pears and apples also last a long time in the fridge and are delicious. the beneficial nutrients of these fruits, they're of course great sources of fiber, heart healthy pectin, which is often found in sort of the soluble fiber of the inside of the fruit. Vitamin C, manganese, copper, and magnesium are all found in these fruits. So our non-starchy vegetables we typically find this time of year: kale, okra, beets, spaghetti squash, Brussels sprouts, parsnips, rutabagas. Um, and, the leafy greens and the root vegetables are really good for you, and lots of ways to include those in your foods. They're beneficial nutrients, fiber, which is pretty much going to be on the list anytime you have a plant food. Vitamins A, C, and K, manganese, all types of phytonutrients, and folate, especially in the leafy greens. Our starchy vegetables, which is where we find our butternut squash, acorn squash, and of course our pumpkin. And sweet potatoes, they're all orange or yellowish orange, you'll notice. And so that tells you something about their nutrient content. So the orange vegetables tend to be high in beta carotene. They're going to have lots of fiber in them. And then so those are the things we tend to look at when we say, oh, get your pumpkin in, is that it's a great source of that vitamin A or beta carotene. So how much produce do you need? Our general guideline is to have between 4 and 5 cups of fruits and vegetables each day. That's combined. I mean, across the board, when you look at all different types of healthy eating plans, they're pretty consistently suggesting this level of fruit and vegetable intake. So that's where I stand. Some people will tell me, well, that sounds like a lot. And typically I tell them, well, you should go home and you should measure 1 cup of whatever, blueberries, or 1 cup of broccoli, or 1 cup of sweet potatoes, and put it on your plate and see what 1 cup looks like, because it's typically less than most people realize. Are vegetables or fruits better for you? That's another question that people often ask. And my response is always like, it doesn't really matter that much. I don't care whether you eat more fruits or more vegetables. What I do want to see is people enjoying the foods they eat. So let's say you like fruits better than vegetables, then eat more fruits. If you like vegetables better than fruits, eat more vegetables. It might depend on the time of year. Like, let's say you love fall season vegetables, but you're not a real big vegetable fan in the summer. So it just can shift. What's important is that you eat plenty of fruits and vegetables. Each food has its own unique nutrient profile. So, um, like I said, it's more important that you get enough produce overall. It's less important which kind you get. So choose the ones you like and incorporate them regularly throughout the day. All right, so generally around our seasonal foods, do an audit on what you typically eat, I think helps. So in this time of year, now not necessarily on your holiday meals themselves, but generally between holiday meals, kind of find out, do you eat a lot of seasonal produce? So write down just your fruits and vegetables. I don't need you to write down everything you eat. But if you're looking at trying to include more seasonal or more colorful fruits and vegetables, the first thing to do is see what you're currently doing. When do you eat fruits and vegetables? And what types do you typically eat? And then you can kind of see, all right, well, let me pick one meal where I want to start incorporating more different foods. So maybe it's trying a new fruit that's in season, or trying a vegetable in a different way. And so typically for me, if I'm going to try a different vegetable, it's probably going to be dinner time. But let's say you want to try snacking on a different fruit. That a snack, then I would say, would be the one thing that you could focus on. Something I've been doing recently is taking those salad kits and then also having extra toppings to put on top. So if I have a salad kit that I got, again, I went to Trader Joe's this week, so that's everything that's on my mind. I got a salad from Trader Joe's. It was really good. So it came with a dressing. It came with a little bit of dried apple and maybe some kind of cheese. I can't remember. And then for me to make it into my lunch meal, I wanted to add a few things on top. So I added avocado So that was not necessarily seasonal, but I did add cranberries, dried cranberries. I added some pomegranates, and then I added some nuts. And so that's, I think, just that's a lunch, or a different snack. You could try a different vegetable or fruit at snack time. And then just pay attention to how you like it. How's your body feel after you eat a different, fruit or vegetable? Do your taste buds like it? Did it fill you up as much as something else? That kind of thing. And then was it fun to try something new? Which recipes have you tried that you liked? And then how is that working into your daily plan? All right, so then another thing that people will ask me about is cooked versus raw. So I always remind you that when produce is cooked, it sometimes activates nutrients and sometimes deactivates nutrients. So if somebody asks, well, should I eat all raw food or raw produce? Because I heard that the cooking process kills the nutrients. No, it's fine to eat cooked foods and it's fine to eat raw foods, because the process does sometimes deactivate nutrients, but it can activate different ones. So I tell people don't worry about it. You just sometimes eat cooked and sometimes raw. And let's be honest, with a lot of our winter or fall vegetables, you gotta cook them. You're not eating a sweet potato that's not cooked. You're not probably not eating a rutabaga that's not cooked. So those things definitely you want to cook them. All right, so the last thing I want to do with our time today is really kind of go through some of my favorite holiday recipes. Now, this isn't the only thing, obviously, that we make with our holiday recipes, but I will say these are recipes that you can find on my website, or I'll send them to you too, but they're ones that are available on my website that I use regularly in holiday meals. Like, it's become a staple. I've discovered them. I love them. And I now include them in my holiday meals every year. We have kind of other recipes that will come and go. Some people just love to have the turkey there. Some people want to do the mashed potatoes. These are the recipes that I love to include that have really good plant nutrients in them. So the first is, I do love cranberry sauce. So I make my own from the fresh berries. It's really easy. So unless you love the canned cranberry, there's no reason not to just make this yourself. It's cheaper. It's delicious. And so all you need is basically cranberries. And then you need sugar. Cranberries are super sour. So if you're going to make a cranberry sauce, you have to add sweetness of some kind. Now you can experiment with how much. So, I put in here half a cup of water, half a cup of orange juice. I like adding that citrus tang into it. It has a half cup sugar and 3/4 of a cup of honey. That's something you can adjust. If you like things more tart, you can cut back on the amount of sugar or honey. Um, you're gonna need some. And then you can add, I like to add grated ginger. So you can either, get fresh ginger and dice it up really small, or you can buy, again, at Trader Joe's. They should be sponsoring this webinar, apparently. They sell little things in the freezer section of ginger, and they sell other, like, garlic as well. And they're in tiny little cubes, like a tiny, small ice cube tray. And then you can pop out the ginger. And so if I'm not using ginger for anything else, then I might buy that. Or if I know I'm going to need a lot of ginger for my holiday cooking, then I'll just buy a ginger root and cut it up myself. But I do love those from Trader Joe's. They're very convenient. And then I put the zest of an orange. So often what I do in this recipe is to get an orange, cut it in half, juice it, squeeze the juice out. So there's my orange juice. And then I just basically chop up the peel, as much as I'm think is, looks right. I like zest, and actually citrus fruits. The zest is really good for you. It has a lot of different phytonutrients in it. So that's another good reason to include the zest into your cranberries. And then you add the crystallized ginger, but you have to wait till it cools before you add that, or it'll just melt in. So essentially you just cook these things together, cool it off, then add your crystallized ginger. And if you wanted to cut back on the added sugars, you potentially could use dates in this recipe, which would be kind of fun. I think I would probably still use the sugar and just ditch the honey, and then put chopped dates in as another way to add some sweetness. I mean, my kids love cranberries too, and the other thing I love to do with leftover cranberry sauce is to have it with plain yogurt, so it can be like fruit on the bottom, or if you're wanting to add fruit with your yogurt. Plain yogurt doesn't have any sugar added to it, so it needs a little bit of sweetness. And the cranberry sauce is really fun to mix in, and it makes a really pretty pink color. So that's my suggestion on the cranberry sauce. I love this recipe. It's really easy. The other thing I love about it, you can definitely, like, you need to probably do it the day before, which is awesome because then you don't have to cook it the day up. All right, so this is another one we decided to put in here. It's my black bean chili recipe, so it's on my website as well. It's been there a long time. I love to cook this in a crock pot. And really the thing is it's delicious. It's pretty easy. I know it looks like a lot of ingredients, but many of them are like open the can and dump it in, or the corn is frozen. And I just think it tastes great, and chili is a wonderful thing to have, in the fall, and, if you're having people over, they're staying over for the holidays, this could be a great, like, night before kind of meal, and because, um, you can do this in a pot. So the instructions on here are for just in a regular pot. Now I do this in a crock pot so that it cooks all day long and then it's ready. And then you can just have toppings to put, on it. And so that makes it a really easy, could be a good day after your holiday recipe as well, because it's just dump it in there and then it'll be ready. Spinach dip. Another one of the things that I love to serve at my holiday meals. So this would be like the appetizer. It's also a great thing to make ahead of time. So it is really nice. For me, I don't love being in the kitchen, so anything I can do ahead of time and get it done with the night before so I can just relax for my, day off work. That's what I like to do. And I love this spinach dip. And my favorite thing to eat it with is just, well, actually, I like it with celery. I like it with carrots. And I love it with Triscuit crackers. That's my favorite crackers. So what you want to do for this is you're essentially taking spinach, and you can just get frozen spinach, 12-ounce package. You can get the block, but then you need it to thaw, which can take a while. So I tend to get the loose spinach, let it thaw like in a colander, and then you press the water out so that it's as dry as it can be. Then in your mixing bowl, you mix plain yogurt, you mix reduced fat cottage cheese or cream cheese, and then whipped cottage cheese, which is a really fun way to make this a little bit lighter in texture, but also still have plenty of protein. And then you're gonna include the red pepper, the red onion, garlic, hot pepper seasoning. So that's crushed red pepper flakes. If you don't like things too spicy, you don't have to put those in. This is not super spicy. If you like it spicy, go ahead and add more because it also has liquid hot pepper seasoning. And you just add what makes it the right, spiciness for you. But I really like this recipe. I mean, I could just eat it all the time. And you're getting vegetables, and great protein from the Greek yogurt and the cream cheese and the cottage cheese. And it's not super high in saturated fat because you're getting the reduced fat versions. It's so good, I promise. And I had my intern over the summer. She refined this recipe for us, and we tried it again this summer. It's so good. Kale salad is also kind of one of my classics, and consistently get good reviews. And it has, I probably for the last 12 to 15 years now, been a staple at our holiday meals. We don't necessarily eat other salads, like green salads. This is the green salad we have. And I mean, almost everybody loves it. And it's often the first thing to be like completely gone. So it's another thing that you can make it ahead of time. You can make like the dressing and the kale leaves, and you massage the dressing into them, which helps make the leaves a little bit more tender. It's a lemon-based dressing, and you basically smush it into the kale leaves, and that makes them a lot more tender than typical raw kale. and easier to eat and delicious. The dressing is really delicious. But if you make it ahead of time, you can go ahead and do all that work with your lettuce or your kale. You want to keep the toppings off of it until it's time to serve, because if you make it ahead of time with the pistachios on it, they just get kind of soggy in the fridge overnight. So that's my one complaint. But you can make this ahead. And if you have leftovers, it lasts really well. Whereas typical green salads, the salad dressing just wilts all the lettuce and it's not good later. This is a salad that's good later, which I love. So essentially you're just making the dressing and massaging it into the lettuce and then adding the toppings. So I have nothing else to say about that. I promise it is good. And then this is another really fun one. It is a dessert. And it's a chocolate peanut butter no bake pie, which I love no bakes because it's not going to take up space in your oven. We use tofu, which gives this pie a protein boost, which is nice. We use peanut butter, which is healthy fats and protein and plant-based. And then you get your dessert flavor from the chocolate chips. We add dark cocoa powder and graham cracker crust. So I am like a do it easy kind of person. I just buy the graham cracker crust. I personally love the chocolate graham cracker crust. But you could also serve this more like a mousse, like in little cups if you wanted to, and not do the crust. But essentially you're going to melt the chocolate chips in a bowl and then stir them until smooth. You take your tofu, peanut butter, sugar, cocoa powder, and vanilla and just food process that thing, or you could use a blender. A food processor works pretty good. Blend it till it's smooth, then add the melted chocolate chips and combine that together and pour it in the crust. Cover it and refrigerate until the filling is firm. Done. Like it's that easy. And it is delicious and no one will know there's tofu in it. Of course, if you have soy allergies in your family, you need to be careful of that, or peanut allergies. But this thing is really good and does not use oven space. And if you buy the graham cracker crust, it comes with that plastic lid thing. Don't throw that plastic lid thing away. Once you put it in the crust, you can put that lid on top of it and put it in the fridge. Okay, so that's pretty much all I have for today and your nutritious holiday foods. I hope you plan to try some of these recipes. You can try them out with your family or try them out ahead of time. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or in the, I don't know, is there a Q&A box? Maybe I didn't do the Q&A this time. I don't see any questions in there. If you do have questions, you can go ahead and put that in there. And if not, then that's what we have for today. I will save these slides and in PDF form and send them out to you. And you can find the recipes on my website if you really need them urgently. My website, of course, is cancerdietitian.com. And oh, looks like we got something in. Can you buy the cottage cheese whipped already? Yes. So my intern bought it over the summer, just whipped cottage cheese. So you know what? That's an interesting point too, because some people don't like cottage cheese because they don't like the texture. Cottage cheese is a great source of protein. So if you don't like the texture of cottage cheese, but you don't mind the taste of it, or you're willing to try it, you can buy it whipped. See how you like that. Good question. Anything else before we go? If you're watching this recording and you want a copy of the slides, just send me an email. It's julie@cancerdietitian.com. And I think that's all for today. I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday season. I'll be putting out my schedule of webinars and cooking classes in the next couple of weeks. And also, the Eat the Rainbow Winter Edition program will be starting December 1st. So if you're interested in signing up for that, I'm going to send out a link for signups when I send out this webinar recording. So I hope you all have a great day. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.